Mavrics Origins Volume 1 is a 72-page sci-fi graphic novel about soldiers and robots and soldiers in robots, with battle suits and fighting in a semi-dystopian future full of endless war and intrigue. The book opens with a robot crew returning home, and the contrast between the futuristic tech, bombed-out buildings, and what appear to be primitive tents does a great job of establishing the chaotic world we're being dropped into. There are also these moments with the character's family that do amazing work in humanizing the story amongst the jungle of technology as we enter. Also, not a lot of information is given about the war, the objectives or enemies, which communicates to the audience that we are in for a nice slow burn of world building. But we are soon whisked away to a military base where we meet all of the players who are about to embark on what is supposed to be the most rudimentary of extraction missions, but obviously won't because that would make for a pretty shit story. A bunch of stuff happens on the mission, and an epic robot fight and a huge surprise that I have no intention of spoiling. As far as action set pieces go, it's remarkably well constructed as the scene continually cuts away from the tense mission to the military base, which has its own tense confrontation. The cuts back and forth build considerable tension that genuinely had me on the edge of my seat. When it was over and the story's denouement released me from its grasp, I was excited to learn more about what I'd just seen and where it was all going. The main story ends with a to be continued that sets up future events, but after a few credits pages we get another scene that takes place before the events of the book and adds a great deal of context and intrigue to the story. Overall, this is a book I heartily recommend, and the link is in the description if you want to grab a copy while it's still in demand. In the book notes it says that it was the creative team's first time full-length graphic novel, but you would never guess that from having read it. It's a very impressive accomplishment regardless of experience, but having said all that, this is a place for well-rounded critique, so let's take out our knives and carve this thing up with some nitpicks. The book contains drastic shifts in setting, and there are times when you genuinely feel them and almost want to go back to where you just were, particularly from the standpoint of the art. When the bleak landscapes of the book's opening jump to well-lit rooms, it doesn't play to the artist's strengths. Darker tones and shadows and a bit more time spent on character design would have kept up the visual momentum that was built in the early going. Speaking of momentum, the story structure felt like it needed someone to zoom out and think about pacing. We get 12 pages of epic world building that do a great job setting the pace for the story, followed by 8 pages of character development, followed by 40 pages of action, followed by 8 pages of flashback story. What this creates is a reading experience that feels like a roller coaster that spills its thrills too early and kind of meanders on for the back third of the book. Or I guess ride. In fact, if I had to chart my reading experience, it would look like this. Here we have 5 pages of the extraction team before they set off for the mission. There's banter and character profiles to learn more about them, but at close to 10% of the story runtime, it drags on. Later, when the action picks up, we get more banter, but at this point it feels redundant. Like removing one of these would make it feel more organic and less of an exposition dump. Also, some of the banter feels more like people reading lines rather than organic conversation, and some of the humor doesn't land so much as it piddles on the carpet. This is Jester. He dislikes yellow food. I don't get it either. But it's brought up later on, and it's like that Mitch Hedberg joke where he says something and his friend doesn't hear him. So he repeats it and his friend doesn't hear him again. So now he's yelling insignificant shit like, "That tree is really far away." In contrast, pages like these feel alive, inhabited by people I genuinely want to know more about, while these feel like people impersonating being alive. This is also true of the post-credits, where we have 4 pages of conversation between these two characters in which almost no information is given, until we meet this character, and over the next 5 pages we get hints of where the story is going. Overall, Mavrics is a 72-page book that honestly feels like it would be a better read at 60. Take the scene from the last 9 pages, split it, and bookend the story with it. Have the 2 men meeting, trim the banter, and open the book with that. Close with a mystery, and reconvene it at the end where we get the relevant information. Take the locker room banter and trim it down, or at least lose the parts that had nothing to do with the story, and focus on learning more about the characters from what they say and do while on a mission. But those are just my notes, and if the creators or fans were to tell me I'm full of shit, I'd completely understand. Gripes aside, this book has a hell of a lot going for it and a bright future. The art, especially in the opening and middle of the book, are stellar, and this is one I'll be keeping an eye out for in the future. I'm giving Mavrics Origins Volume 1 a 7.9 out of 10, and I will see you when I see you.